Welcome to Good Money Moves, the show where we share financial tips and advice to help you feel financially empowered. Today we are diving into a very important topic, and that is how do you go about buying a car without feeling the buyer's remorse afterwards? It's a big purchase. There's lots of things to consider, so we're going to dig into that today, and that's why I've invited Jordan Kahler to join me again. Welcome back, Jordan.
Thanks.
Thank you
Glad
for
to be
coming
here.
Before we dig into our topic, why don't you just take a minute to kind of introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you do as a loan portfolio manager here at the credit union.
Sure thing. Yeah, so my typical day-to-day, so I'm in charge of the underwriting department for both consumer and business lending. So whenever there's kind of some complicated loans that are coming through, we say maybe some people that have some really colorful credit, and we're just kind of trying to make sense of, does the loan make sense to do, or is there something else we can do? And I kind of help the underwriting team come with solutions. And outside of managing the underwriting team, I keep an eye on just the overall loan portfolio that we've got with the products that we offer, see what kind of rates we should maybe offer, keep an eye on the market to make sure we're not like too high of rates or too low of rates, make sure that the performance is all right, that everything is, it's very analytical, and I'm all about it. I like it.
Yeah, you do a good job at it, that's for sure.
Well, thanks.
You dig into the data.
That's right.
But we're not talking data today.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking cars.
That's right.
And car buying. So let's just jump right in. If somebody's in the market for a used car, what is like the first step they should take before they even maybe start looking for a vehicle?
I think the first step that somebody should take when considering a vehicle is just figure out what you want, right? Or figure out what you need. A lot of people know what they want, and wants can get expensive.
Yes.
Figure out what you need and start from there. So like here in Minnesota, like right now, it's like, golly, those roads can be kind of slick sometimes. So it's like, is rear wheel drive something that you want in the wintertime? That might be really tough to handle. Is front wheel drive, all wheel drive? What kind of vehicle do you want? Does a car make sense? Does it a truck? Really determine what your needs are and kind of go from there. Once you've established, okay, I think I've decided I need a truck because I live in the country and I've got things that I need to haul, and I've got, I would need the bed to, dispose of, say, like yard maintenance or something like that. And so maybe you've determined you need a truck. The next step is determining like what kind of a purchase price can I have? What can I afford to purchase, which can be a combination of financing and down payment, or just even if you can buy it with all cash, awesome. Then a loan isn't even involved.
Right.
So,
right.
Just some things, just determining what your needs are, and it is tricky to. It's a fine line between needs and wants.
For sure. And it's sometimes hard to step back from those wants if the pricing doesn't pan out, because if we're talking pickup trucks, you're talking lots of money, and not everybody has that kind of money. So they may have to, even though they may truly need one, they may have to like step back and think, okay, well, this doesn't actually fit my budget, unfortunately, or I can't get a quality, reliable vehicle for the price point that I can afford. So how can I solve those problems other ways? So thinking about that ahead of time is really important, to your point. But let's start to dig into pricing a little bit. How can someone figure out what is a fair price for a vehicle?
Yeah. So you don't always have to need a loan to speak with a lender here at First Alliance. So when I was a lender, and I had members calling in asking about vehicles or whatever, and what is a fair price, we pull something from J.D. Power that's a value. And so there's different types of value. People may get it from like Kelley Blue Book. Depending on your source, you may get a different value. But the standard from a financial institution with financing, from my experience, is J.D. Power is like the standard of valuations.
For vehicles?
For vehicles,
okay.
Yes. And so we can go to a website, punch in the VIN, we can punch in the miles, we can talk about any features that the vehicle might have, and you get a value, and J.D. Power pretty much somehow, it's proprietary information, I'm sure, but they figure out generally this is where dealers are selling the vehicles as a price point. And so you can have that information, and I would give that information to our members, because being equipped with an informed purchase is the best purchase.
Sure.
So knowing what something is worth to make sure you're not getting ripped off is good.
Yeah, so I like, that you bring in kind of that third-party information to evaluate whether or not the vehicle that you're looking at is sitting at a price point that makes sense for kind of what's the rest of the market is offering. And to your point, there's a lot of resources out there that can tell you that, online, coming in, talking to somebody, if you kind of have an idea of a vehicle you're looking for specifically, to kind of fact check a little bit that price point. And as long as you're here, you may as well fact check whether or not it fits in your budget from a loan standpoint. So what are maybe some of like the red flags or things that are almost too good to be true when you're car shopping? What are some things you should be mindful of, especially, while a lot of dealers are very honest, there's a lot out there that are not so honest, or maybe you're buying from a private party who is trying to hide a problem or something. What are some things people can be kind of mindful of or as they're car shopping for a used vehicle?
Yeah. So it depends if you're going through dealership or private party. I would say with a private party, you have more opportunity to engage in conversation, to understand, like, why do you want to sell it? And really key in on kind of their behaviors and their nonverbals. Like if it seems like they're kind of pushing you to try and buy and trying to get rid of it really fast, it should raise some red flags or something where it's like, why would someone need to be pushing this so hard on a private party sale?
Sure.
You know what I mean? And whether it's private party or dealership, understanding what the value is and then realizing what they're selling it for. One thing that I've found is if, say you pull a value from J.D. Power or get one from us, and then say the vehicle is worth $15,000, right? And you're at a dealership and they're selling it for $10,000. Well, any business, regardless if they're selling cars or not, if they're selling goods, they want to sell it for what it's worth.
Right.
So asking, okay, if dealers are trying to get the most bang out of their buck from selling a vehicle, why are they discounting at $5,000?
Sure.
I've seen that a few times, and you can asking questions and bringing it to like a mechanic or something in advance of committing to purchase is huge on that. And I'd say honestly do that with a private party, because a mechanic, I'm not a car expert. I totally trust a mechanic though, and so bring it to a trustworthy mechanic that's independent of the dealership that you're going through.
Right.
And you can validate the condition of the vehicle and make sure everything checks out, because mechanics have an ears and eyes for, like, they work on it every day, every week, so they are experts. So keeping an eye out for some of that stuff. And one thing to know is typically private parties will sell vehicles less than like what we call a retail value. You may have a couple different means of words for value. Retail value is typically if a dealer was to sell it, that's how much they would sell it for.
Okay.
Private party purchases are usually like discounted a couple $1,000s, because with dealers they do a lot more stuff to get it polished up and ready for sale, whereas private party can just sell it if it's got some rust on it that they didn't clean up, or maybe it's a little dirty or something, and dealers will do a lot of maintenance to get it to that price point.
Sure. So it's kind of just being mindful of how they're answering your questions. Are they willing to let you take it to another mechanic? If they're not, that might be a red flag right there. If they're not willing to maybe let you test drive it, or those types of things come to my mind too. I've heard horror stories like that before. So all kinds of things, but I think to your point, just having really good questions and pushing when an answer isn't fully given, or doesn't feel, or maybe if it feels like they're trying to hide something, just like walk away, right? I mean, even if it seems like it might be the car of your dreams, it's only the car of your dreams if it's the right price and it's good and safe and reliable. Otherwise it can turn into a nightmare really fast, which we definitely don't want. Let's talk a little bit about how you go about financing a used car, right? What's the difference between maybe financing through the credit union or financing directly through the dealership? What are maybe some of the differences or things that people should be mindful of there when it comes to financing a used car?
Yeah. So when you're financing at the dealership, the jargon for that is called indirect lending. If you're financing directly through a credit union, that's called direct lending. With the dealer, let's start with indirect or financing at the dealership. That process, truthfully, is very convenient, because what you can do is you can go there, you can say, this is the car I want. You sit there for, usually takes a couple hours to get all the paperwork done and stuff, and you can drive off the lot with the car. Perfect. You got your financing. It's good to go. There are some things to be aware of, and just like industry standards for like dealerships. Sometimes if you sign at the dealership, I mean, you pay for the convenience in that they may increase your interest rate from what you'd otherwise qualify for if you apply directly at the credit union. And there's some other things, like they can sell in warranty more easily and gap more easily. However, financing through the credit union, typically we've got far more affordable warranty and gap. Like, for example, Gap dealers will sell it for about $900 about this point in time.
Okay.
Whereas ours right now is $550.
Okay.
So you've got some savings. You know what I mean? There's some savings there. They mark up some of their stuff more than what we would, because they're for profit. We're not for profit.
Right. So it sounds like if you're going to finance directly through the dealership, there's that level of convenience that comes with that, because you're not having to go back to the credit union, for example, get a check or get the money deposited, go through that and then go back and get the car. But you're likely going to pay a higher interest rate, possibly some additional fees, or if you do choose to have some of those add-on services, those are likely going to be a little bit more expensive.
Yes.
Versus the credit union, where you don't have some of those markups, is what I'm going to call them, the way that you would at the dealership. So there's just some savings to be had if you go. Well, you may have to make an extra trip into the credit union or make a couple extra phone calls, perhaps.
Yep.
At the end of the day, you're saving a lot of money going direct to the credit union or whatever financial institution you use.
Yeah.
So we kind of started to talk a little bit about extra costs, but what are some of those extra costs? You mentioned some of the ancillary products you can add on to your loan, but I'm thinking when you go and look at that retail value of the car, that's part of the cost of buying a car, but there's also things like tax, title, license. Can you talk a little bit about how those play into the final cost of a car, and do those get put into the total loan amount that you would have? Do you have to pay for them separately? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So if we take financing out of it, just to simplify it for now, if you work through something called a purchase agreement. A purchase agreement is a document that the dealer will prepare for you that itemizes essentially the cost of purchasing the vehicle. Obviously, you've got the sticker price of the vehicle. That's how much it will cost just to get the vehicle. There are additional costs like you talked about. There's sales tax. Every state varies. There's, in certain counties or cities, there's something called wheelage tax that gets put on there. You have to pay fees to transfer the title into your name. There may be registration that has to be completed, so you get, some states call them tags, we call them tabs, same thing. And those may vary. Typically, the newer the vehicle is, the more expensive your registration is going to be.
Sure.
Generally, the older a vehicle is, the cheaper those registration fees are. And those are the typical or standard, without any products, those are the typical fees that you're going to see. There's generally also a dealer application fee that seems standard. I think there's, I forget what the cap is, but dealers can only charge so much.
Okay.
It's usually $100 or $150 or something like that right now. But on top of that, there's other add-ons that people can have. There's, dealers will call a warranty a service contract.
Okay.
We already talked about gap. There's also, in Minnesota especially, dealers may say, oh yeah, here's a rust inhibitor. It's some kind of something that they can put on the bottom of the vehicle that helps slow or prevent rust from accumulating. There's other things that dealers have. They can get kind of creative with some of the features that they offer. But there's plenty of add-ons that dealers can have that can maintain the value of your vehicle.
Sure.
I would
at a cost.
Yeah.
Right. So be mindful of that. If they're kind of talking to you about all these things that they want to add onto this final purchase price, that so a lot of those are optional, and if that doesn't fit your budget, you can opt out.
Oh yeah.
And don't feel pressured to add that in there, especially if it's going to be cost prohibitive for you.
Oh yeah, and every one of them is voluntary, with the exception of sales tax and
tax,
registration,
title, license,
things like that.
Those
are
from
mandatory.
The government,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, Uncle Sam's going to want his money, So, but yeah, anything else is totally voluntary. So don't, even if a dealer has some kind of, high pressure sales tactics or something, or makes you feel, or doesn't seem to be disclosing things, always check that purchase agreement to see what all is in there. And if you see anything outside sales tax, title fees, registration, ask about it.
Yeah.
And if it's something you don't want, and to your point, it doesn't fit in your budget, then ask them to take it off. And if they're being real weird about taking it off, then maybe just consider looking at a different dealership.
No, you don't want pushy salesmen.
No.
They should have your best interest in your
That's right.
and your budget in mind. So I want to circle back a little bit to kind of the whole process of evaluating whether or not a vehicle is in good condition and is of kind of fair market value, like we talked about, there's something called a vehicle history report. Sometimes you have those accessible for free. Sometimes you have to pay for them. Yep. Some dealers will just give it to you. Yep. Some won't. It kind of varies. But what is on a vehicle history report, and how can someone maybe tell if a vehicle is safe and reliable, or maybe it's been in accidents? Like, is that talk a little bit about that and how someone should go about looking at that as they're evaluating a vehicle that they might purchase?
Yeah. So when you're looking at one of those, there's a variety of things that can show up. To your point, it can show if the vehicle has ever been in an accident and it went to like a body shop to get repaired or something. It'll show what was repaired, when it was repaired, what shop did the work. It'll document all of that information. It'll also show like maintenance records. I think that most vehicles really are good vehicles. However, if it's not maintained, you're probably going to have some problems. So when you look at that, if you get that maintenance history on that, you can see, okay, was the oil changed every 3,000 to 5,000 miles? Was every car has like an owner's manual and like a schedule of the maintenance that should be done. And you can just look at the owner's manual and just see that schedule and compare it against the history that you see, and like, okay, does this align? I mean, if it does 100%, I'd be like, that thing is golden. You know what I mean? Like, that thing has been maintained perfect. But if someone isn't bringing it in or getting that track record of maintenance, it may not show up, and then you're just kind of going in blind if you don't have that information, because the better the maintenance, the better the quality of the vehicle. Yeah,
it's more likely to not break down or have unexpected repairs and things like that.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to circle back around to, and we kind of mentioned it a couple different times, and that is some of those add-on products.
Yeah.
And I feel like they can get a bad rap a little bit because they do add that additional cost to your loan payment or to your final vehicle price, whatever, however you want to look at that. But there are times when those products are very, very useful and can honestly kind of save you from financial stress down the road. So can you just take a little bit of time to talk through things like debt protection, gap, like mechanical repair coverages, and when we're talking about buying used vehicles, especially if you are in a market where you are having to buy much older vehicles than what you maybe would like, how those can actually be really financially smart to add on to your vehicle loan if you have one.
Yes. So debt protection is something that dealerships typically don't offer. So that's one benefit of working directly with the credit union. Honestly, with the ancillary products that we've got between debt protection, gap, and MRC, it can make so much less stress in the time of a life event. Starting with debt protection, I'll just cite one example. Let's say you're working and you have an accident and you break your leg. You're not able to work for 14 days. Debt protection, as long as you've got the disability protection that we offer, it can give you some peace of mind in knowing that it can make they say cancel your payments, but essentially it takes money and it makes the payment for you. So while you're out of work, you don't have to worry about one other payment, because when you're on disability, short-term disability or long-term disability, typically what you're bringing home is about 60% of what you're used to seeing. And most Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and if anyone took a 60% cut in their pay, good luck making ends meet.
And that's if you have that protection through your job, because if you don't, you're really in a pickle.
Yeah. And so that's just one. Like, there's a variety of things that our debt protection can cover, and I could take a full hour and talk about that.
It could be a whole, we're succinct right now.
So another thing is gap, and one benefit that comes to that is, so one thing called depreciation, where a vehicle decreases in value over time. If you are taking out a loan at the max term, and say you, for whatever reason, didn't have funds down at the time of the purchase, your vehicle is likely going to decrease in value faster than your loan pays off. Now, if you're driving down the road and you hit a deer, and your vehicle is deemed to be a total loss, and insurance is now saying, you know what, I know you bought this for $20,000, but today it's worth $10,000.
Yeah.
And you owe $15,000. And you're like, what am I going to do with that extra $5,000. Well, GAP pays for itself.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about dealing with negative equity. Our GAP also has additional features above and beyond, where if the next vehicle that you finance is financed with us, within a certain period of time, it gives you $1,000 to apply as a principal payment to the next loan you get with us.
I just learned that today.
Yeah, so like above the $5,000 gap that it covered, you get an additional $1,000 on top of that, provided the next loan's financed with us. And I can't say that all dealerships, their gaps have that extra benefit. The last one, really, warranty. All of these are really peace of mind, because say, like, even if a warranty is, say, $3,500, right? Let's say you have something major happen with your car because it's a used vehicle. Say you purchased private party, you did all the due diligence that you could to try and make sure that the vehicle was good, but inevitably something happened.
Yeah, something always happens.
Something always happens. Yeah, there's no perfect vehicle. But let's say something happens with the engine, right? And the cost to repair the engine is, I don't know exactly what it is, but I know it's expensive.
A lot.
That's a lot.
Thousands
of
dollars.
All the technology in vehicles lately too, like if something goes wrong with the touch screen on your center like display, I mean, that can be expensive too. And if you have a warranty, say that lasts 5 years, inevitably something's going to happen with the 5 years,
Right.
and the sum of all those costs will probably exceed what the cost of the warranty was.
Sure.
So not having to worry about shelling out $2,000 here for this repair, and 6 months later having to do $1,000 here and all that, it can really provide a lot more peace of mind with some of those. So there really is a tremendous benefit with some of those add-ons. They're not just being sold just for the sake of selling.
Right. Yeah, and I think to your point, especially when you are buying used, new cars will have their problems eventually, but if you're buying used, you're more likely to run into these scenarios than you are if you're buying a brand new car. So definitely take time to consider adding some of those. And if you already have, the nice thing I know here too is if you already have a vehicle loan with us, you can add those on at any time. You don't have to only do it at the time that you originally closed the loan. So if this sounds like a great thing for you and you want to ask about it, we can add it to your loan. But thank you so much for being here, Jordan. We are like out of time. We have so much more we could dig into with this topic. We'll cover it again in another episode, I'm sure. But this has been Good Money Moves. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure that you like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you want to learn more about Good Money Moves and car buying and all of the stuff we talked about today, make sure you visit our website at firstalliancecu.com. And until next time, stay financially empowered.